All right. Andrei, welcome to the BlockHash Podcast Live. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Doing very well myself. Pleasure to have you on and here to talk about Coinberry and all of that. Anyways, before we do that, tell me a little bit more about you. I'm curious, how did you, find yourself getting into this space, into this crazy world of crypto and blockchain? What was your story? What's your journey?
Yeah. How did everybody's got their own story, right, of how they ended up in crypto? But yeah, my story goes back probably around 5-6 years ago when I first started hearing about Bitcoin at various events and parties and such. I had a couple of friends that are programmers and developers and stuff, so they were telling me about what Bitcoin is all about, and I found the concept very fascinating. This was probably like 2015. I found the concept very fascinating, but I didn't do much with that idea or that knowledge at the time. And then I personally, my background is I'm an engineer by trade, so I love building things, whether it's like physical things or companies or processes. Like I just love that sort of journey of building and creating something where out of nothing kind of thing. And so I was fast forward 2017, and a couple of years after I sort of first started hearing about Bitcoin, I was at a so the story of how Coinberry actually came about was I was at a down in Miami on a bachelor trip, and we were wrapping it up, and we were on the beach in Miami at the last day of the trip. It was myself and 4 or 5 other friends. Some of the guys were from Canada, and some of the guys were from the States, and we were trying to settle our debts to each other. Just after whatever, a couple of days, we all kind of owed each other some money. And believe it or not, it's actually very difficult to send money as a Canadian to anybody in the States and vice versa. I mean, your only option really is to send a wire or go to the ATM and like get cash and pay, right? And we were on the beach. Nobody wanted to go to the ATM, and obviously nobody was going to send a wire. And my business partner and friend, Evan, he suggested that we all settle our debts using Bitcoin. So, we're there on the beach, someone hung over on I think it was like a Sunday afternoon, all signing up, on a Coinbase accounts, and ultimately ended up settling our debts with Bitcoin, which I obviously regret now at this point in time quite a lot, because I should have held on to that Bitcoin that I had bought to do that. But all that to say, I had a bit of an aha moment there, because my previous businesses that I was involved in was there was international trade that we were doing. So we were shipping goods internationally cross-border. And anybody who's ever been in that business would appreciate the fact that when you have a container that's looking to cross customs somewhere, and they're waiting for duties to be paid, and it's a long weekend, and the wire hasn't landed, and the container is sitting there for like 4 days, 5 days. There's a lot of cost that accumulates just from that, just from sort of the holding fees. And because that was experience I had previously, when I was sitting on that beach in Miami, I had this aha moment when I realized, geez, when big business, when international shipping companies, when sort of the international, international businesses realize and appreciate the efficiency with which they can actually settle transactions cross-border, using, specifically the application of blockchain as a technology to the financial industry in the form of Bitcoin, that's going to be revolutionary. Like, that's going to change the way people actually interact globally, financially with one another. And so I had that moment. I thought, this is incredible, because we're just a bunch of regular guys sitting on a beach, and we found this use case just like that, right? And there's nothing special about our use case. There's 1,000 other use cases like that. And again, and once big business finds out about this, like, this is going to change the world. Anyway, so we went back home. This is early 2017. We went, everybody flew back home. I flew back to Toronto. And then a couple months later, again, my business partner and my friend Evan Kuhn, he calls me up and he says, "Hey, we have this idea of launching a Bitcoin, Bitcoin business." And he knew I had an MBA. He knew I had an engineering degree, and they wanted somebody to come help manage it professionally. And I had a full-time corporate job at the time, so I did sort of the unthinkable and quit my very comfortable full-time corporate job and put some money up into this business, and never looked back. And 4.5 years later, and probably working, I don't know, 80, 100-hour weeks for the last 4 years, we got to where we are now. And that is, Coinberry is one of the top, crypto trading platforms in Canada. One of Canada's safest and most secure trading platforms. We focus on making the trading experience very convenient, very easy, very simple, and at the same time very safe and very secure. And we are the first pure play crypto trading platform in Canada to actually receive OSC registration, which provides that extra level of added security and oversight that ultimately investors in Canada have been looking for and deserve ultimately. And so it's been quite a journey, I have to tell you, but a very rewarding and very fulfilling one to date.
Oh yeah, it sounds like an awesome journey. That's a cool story too. What's it like trying to navigate those regulations in Canada? Because if you're the first and the only one to do it, I imagine other exchanges in Canada have had quite a difficult time doing the same thing as well. But what was that like, trying to navigate those waters?
Yeah, so the system in the regulatory system in Canada is a little bit different than in the States. So in the US, you have FinCEN, which is a federal body, and which is very similar to a FINTRAC in Canada. Okay, and that's a regulatory body that oversees the movement of money on a high level, right, in the country. And then you guys have the SEC. So in the States, the SEC is a federal body. In Canada, there's no such federal body that exists. What we have are provincial regulators. So imagine that, akin to like if each state had their own like state SEC. That's what we have in Canada. So we have each province and territory in Canada has their own commission, their own securities commission. And together the commissions form what's known as the Canadian Securities Administrators, which is a group where they all come together. But ultimately, there's no federal body that oversees the entire industry. So our journey began in, I would say, early 2018, when we approached the Ontario Securities Commission, which is, so we are based in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And so the provincial commission that we are, that governs us as a business is the Ontario Securities Commission. So we approached them in 2018, in early 2018, and back then nobody really knew much about the space. There was very little exposure. This was a very nascent industry, and so we just approached them initially just as a form of just introducing ourselves and saying, hey, we would like to let you know that we want to build a business in this industry that's based on safety, security, compliance, and a business that has long-term growth potential. We're not here to just flip a quick buck on an ICO. If you remember back then, ICOs were all the rage in 2018, right? 2017. So that's how sort of the dialogue started, and a lot of the sort of the relationship that we've built with the OSC, over the years has been built over this communication that we have back and forth. And so ultimately, over a period of about 3 years, they I don't want to say audited, because audit has like a legal connotation to it, but they visited our offices, on multiple occasions, reviewed all our policies, our procedures, all our controls, everything that we put in place to safeguard, and our investors' assets, and to make sure that investor interest was kept, at heart. And ultimately, over that period of 3 years, they've seen us and they've watched us grow, and as a business, and they've seen us bolster all our, again, our insurances that we have in place. And we have some of the most phenomenal insurances in the country. We have our cold storage is custodied with Gemini, and Gemini offers over $200 million worth of insurance. We have other insurance products that we have bought, again, to protect our investors' assets. So there's a lot that we have put in place, both from an insurance perspective, from a custody perspective, from a controls perspective, to safeguard our investors' assets. And all of that ultimately resulted in the OSC becoming comfortable with our business, right, and becoming comfortable to register us. And so in late December of last year, in 2020, we sort of formally submitted our application after 3 years of, I guess, due diligence being done on us. I guess 2.5 years at that point in time of due diligence being done on us. We formally submitted our application, and then in early 2021, so about January of this year, the Ontario Securities Commission brought us forth in front of the Canadian Securities Administrators. So all of the commissions, brought us forth in front of the round table. And I presented the business again. I explained sort of our thesis, our focus on safety and security and compliance. And so that was a very interesting discussion, which resulted in about, I would say, 7 months of responding to questions from all the other security commissions now, because you need, ultimately in Canada, again, you need all of them to sign off to be able to do business across the country, right? And we wanted to be able to do business across the country. We didn't want any of the provinces to opt out, right? So we took about half a year thereafter to, again, respond to all of the sort of the questions and the requests and the clarifications that came forth from all the other commissions. So we were very happy at the end of this long journey that lasted literally over 3 years. And I don't know how much in legal fees at this point in time. We were very happy to become the first sort of pure play crypto company that was actually born of the industry, an actual startup that was created, within the crypto space in Canada, and the first one to actually offer both funding in Canadian dollars and funding in crypto, but also withdrawing in Canadian dollars from the platform and withdrawing crypto from the platform. And so again, we were very happy to be able to offer that our level of service, together with sort of the security that regulatory oversight provides to our users. So that's been our journey so far. And like you mentioned, I mean, I'm sure there are other platforms that are going through this process, and I'm happy to know that they are. I'm happy that the industry is maturing, that it's growing, that you have serious players, and companies that are investing into the infrastructure that's required in order to become regulated. Because again, ultimately, at the end of the day, it's all about investor protection.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's awesome too. And I'm sure other exchanges will probably get it eventually at some point. If you guys are getting it, I mean, I'm sure it'll start rolling out to others pretty slowly. They'll probably all follow the same footsteps that you guys took to get it. What are the benefits of that, though? Is it being able to work closely with banks or insurance companies, or offer certain products to your customers? What's the main benefit of having all this regulatory approval?
Yeah, so I mean, look, the first and foremost one is investor protection. It requires a certain amount of maturity and a certain level of security and safety to become registered. So that's the first thing that any investor should really look out for when they're picking a platform to trade on, is whether that platform is regulated. Because ultimately, again, not so much in the US, but in Canada, we've had a couple of not so happy stories about exchanges, folding because, policies were non-existent, or
Sure.
procedures were non-existent, or, assets weren't custodied properly. So that's the first thing that really is sort of the message that, not the message, but the indicator that investors should look for. Ultimately, for us as a business, it definitely allowed us to, have much more in-depth discussions with the banks. Obviously it opens doors when you talk, to insurance providers. For us as a company, we're also looking to go public later on this year. So that was one of the requirements for us to go public. And again, it all comes down to the level of sort of pedigree and the level of regulatory oversight that a company is able to elevate to, that is communicated through the registration, right?
Got it. Are you guys exclusive to Canadians only, or do you guys take customers from the United States or outside of Canada anywhere?
Yeah, so at this point in time, we are exclusive to Canada. We've been very focused on the market here. I would be lying if I said that we weren't looking at the U.S. market and markets outside of Canada in general. But at this point, at this stage, having just received our registration, we're laser focused on the Canadian market for, I would say, for the next couple of quarters for sure.
Okay, but you do want to potentially expand outside Canada and kind of grow jurisdictions where.
Of course, because I mean, if you think about it, the product that we deliver to the market, an easy to use, convenient, safe, and secure platform to actually get into crypto. That I mean, the reason why we created Coinberry in the first place, right? If you go back to the sort of the beginnings, is we wanted to create a platform that even our grandparents could use, like an app that even our grandparents could use if they wanted to get into crypto. And that is that's cross-border. That's a need that exists cross-border, cross-country. To say that crypto is entering the mainstream, I think is quite an understatement at this stage. This isn't 2017 or 18. I mean, at this point in time, we have countries that are literally using Bitcoin as legal tender. I think at this point in time, the only impediment that really exists to true mass adoption is the complexity of actually getting into the space. And that's what we're solving at Coinberry, right? We're providing that ease of use, that convenience, but also packaged, with safety and security, which again, ultimately is what is needed for mass adoption. You can't have mass adoption of any technology that doesn't have the basic fundamental safety protocols in place that people expect to have when they're dealing, when entrusting their finances, to you. Mm-hmm. So yeah, from that perspective, I think the what we're responding to as a need from the market exists in a lot of countries and definitely outside of just Canada.
What features exactly make it so easy and simple to use in terms of hitting that mission that you guys are on?
Sure. So we are very careful not to have any crazy complex charting on the platform. Like we're not a platform for day traders. You're not going to be able to do MACD analysis with us. What you are going to be able to do is to onboard very, very quickly and efficiently from the comfort of your cell phone, from the comfort of your laptop, 24/7. Once you've onboarded in Canada, we have a system called an e-transfer. It's sort of like your Venmo in the US, but it's a system that allows you to send funds from your bank account to any other bank account through an email very quickly, like instantaneously, basically. And so, you're able to, then our users, once they've onboarded, are able to, fund their accounts almost instantaneously through an e-transfer. And very easily, again, the interface is extremely intuitive. And we ask our users, we poll our users, and we ask them the question of, why did you choose to, to use Coinberry as your service provider of choice? And the number one response all the time is ease of use. It's because the platform is extremely intuitive. There's no clutter. There's no complexity to the way you can actually get your money in, buy your coin, and we offer about 18 coins at this point in time. Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash, and obviously 14 others. And so we allow, novice users that don't necessarily have the expertise to do complex charting or complex analysis, to have exposure to the space, to actually be able to own, one of the most revolutionary financial assets that has been created over the last 100 years, and all from the comfort of their phone, in a matter of 5 minutes. And I think that's what really is our sort of our secret sauce.
Okay, so if I had a Canadian grandma, this would be perfect for her because it'd be super simple for her to use if she wanted to invest in crypto.
Absolutely.
Okay, I need to get a Canadian grandma.
Got to get a Canadian grandma first, exactly.
Other than the simplicity and ease of use, are there other things that make Coinberry stand out versus other competition you have in Canada? Maybe features or products or things you offer, or maybe just a different design or take on how exchange should look. You already said that you guys don't focus too much on having complex charting and analysis, but are there other things that separate you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's two things I want to talk about. One is an amazing feature we have called Autopilot, which allows our users to basically set a recurring buy of any of the crypto assets that we offer, and that could be once a month, once a day, once a week, any amount that they want. And ultimately, then we just buy that amount. Let's say it's $50. They want to buy $50 of Bitcoin once a week, and we just buy that $50 of Bitcoin once a week, like scheduled every single week. For new users, this is probably one of the best ways to get into the space, because it allows you to stop trying to time the market, catch the falling knife and all of that, and allows you to price, to price average over a period of time, and your returns and obviously, again, I'm not giving any financial advice on this podcast, but historically speaking, users that have, this feature turned on that just buys in a recurring manner, they performed very well. And again, it takes out the emotional aspect of what am I going to do? Is it pumping now? Do I buy now? Do I not buy? For people that don't know what to do, this is a great feature, and it's very popular with our users. That's from the feature perspective. But again, I want to kind of go back to the safety and security, and it's very important for again for users in Canada and for investors in Canada, whether it's a platform such as Coinberry or another platform that gets registered. It's very important to trade with registered platforms because it does provide a very big difference in terms of, there is a very big difference, and it provides a level of security and safety that exists from having the proper controls and policies and procedures in place. I can't underscore that enough. And I know your Canadian listeners know of some of the stories that of the failed exchanges in Canada, and they will understand what I'm talking about when I say that having the proper controls in place is paramount importance, and having sort of the regulatory oversight at that extra level of security that investors really should look for and definitely deserve.
We've had our fair share in the U.S. as well, so I think a lot of people listening probably are understanding of that. Oh yeah. Another question, kind of more out of curiosity, any desire to trade or allow customers to trade a security-based token at some point, maybe in the future, if you have all the right regulatory compliance to do so? I know there's a lot of exchanges out there looking at it potentially, and it's kind of bubbling up as an interesting market, being able to take a traditional security, tokenize it, and trade it that way. Is that something maybe you guys are interested in the future, or is that a little far off?
Look, there's a lot of phenomenal products out there. Tokenized, current tokenized security products is definitely one of them. There's a plethora of DeFi projects that are also phenomenal. There's bond products and lending products that exist as well. I think as it pertains to trading securities per se, that is a little bit more complex than trading crypto assets that are not deemed securities. So there's probably a bit of a journey we have to take in order to be able to do that. But again, we're always looking at innovative products to launch, and whether it's NFTs or whether it's tokenized securities. There's a lot of opportunity out there. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the call, we're living in a phenomenal time, a once in a lifetime really change, in the way that finances sort of exist and the financial markets exist in the world, and the way that transactions take place, and the way that people at society actually interact from a financial perspective. And so I think we're going to see a lot of we're going to continue seeing a lot of extremely cool products and projects, roll out over the next several years.
Yeah. Do you think, here's another interesting question. Do you think Canada is pretty open to crypto, or opening up even more to it from a government side of it, or have they not really ruled on it? I don't follow Canada as closely maybe as I should, living in the U.S. and being so close. But what's it like living in Canada and working in the crypto space? Is it difficult to navigate, like you have to do with like the regulation stuff, or are they a little bit more welcoming now?
Look, I wouldn't say that they were ever not welcoming. Again, their mandate as regulators is to protect investors in Canada. That's actually literally what their mandate is, right? So we haven't had experiences to say that they've been very heavy-handed. We've been very open with our approach of working together with regulators and as much as we can, and so I'm sure there are other platforms. And look, there was a bunch of exchanges that exited the Canadian market. Binance exited Ontario. KuCoin exited as well because the Ontario Securities Commission started enforcing registration. There was a couple enforcement actions that they put forth against Poloniex, where Poloniex got fined pretty heavily, and then BitMEX as well left. So I think what we're going to end up seeing in Canada is what we're seeing right now is the maturity of our industry. I'm very happy that the regulators put forth sort of clear guidelines that allowed companies such as Coinberry to actually get registered, because ultimately what that results in is more institutional interest in the industry. A lot of institutional players, they have a mandate to only be able to invest on registered platforms. They're not retail investors. They can't just go and open an account anywhere. And there's a lot of institutional investors that have, substantial funds waiting to be deployed into the crypto space. And so the more the industry matures, the more platforms become available that cater to institutional investors, the more the more funds are going to be deployed in this space, and ultimately that's going to result in an appreciation of the price, because more demand, and a ever decreasing supply obviously results in appreciation of the price. So I think what we are seeing is the maturity of the industry in Canada, and I think we're going to continue seeing that. We're going to continue seeing enforcement of non-compliant players, and ultimately we're going to see a consolidation in the industry in Canada, because smaller players are not going to be able to go through. It's quite an onerous process. Like, 3 years is a long time, and it's an expensive just process from the perspective of just legal fees. So you're gonna have a lot of smaller players that are not going to be able to do this, and so you're gonna have consolidation in the space. So it's I think that's where we're heading, and you're gonna have, like most industries, you're gonna have 4 or 5 major players that are able to elevate their sort of level of operational capabilities to a level which is sufficient or acceptable to the regulators, and the rest you will see probably fall off.
Got it. Yeah, this was probably likely, possible likelihood that could happen. Where can people go to learn more about Coinberry, to sign up for Coinberry, to download it? Do you guys have a community like Discord or Telegram where people can kind of chit chat? Where should people go?
Yeah, so our website is www.coinberry.com. So that's COINBERRY.com, and we have a ton of information on our website. We have a ton of educational information. We have a learning center on our website. So, for anybody that's new to the space that just wants to understand, what's Bitcoin, what's an NFT, like some of the terms we used here, you can go to the website. We have a phenomenal learning center. It's completely free to use. You don't have to sign up to have access to it. It's, it's free for anybody and has full access. And you can just read up on some of the crypto products that exist out there, some of the crypto coins, the assets, the projects. And we believe in that education, and that's how we sort of work with the community is through education, because again, you got to keep in mind our whole sort of thesis, right, is to provide a platform even our grandparents can use, and you need to educate your grandparents, right, because some of the stuff is new and some of the stuff is very nascent, and it's ever changing, and it's changing very quickly. And so we put together quite a complete and well done learning center. So I really invite your listeners to check it out. Again, it's available on coinberry.com, and you can we have all our social media handles on there as well, if you want to follow. And if you're Canadian and you're listening to this, then definitely check us out, and we'd love to have your business sign up on the platform, download the app. Again, we are available on both iOS, we're available on Android and on the web, 24/7, and looking forward to being able to service your listeners.
Perfect. What does your shirt say, out of curiosity? Crypto
Made simple.
Crypto made simple. Oh, is that a Coinberry shirt?
That is a Coinberry shirt.
I love it. Good color too. It really pops.
Thank you. Should have said that.
Yeah. Lean back more so they can get it in the picture. Anyways, Andrei, thank you for taking the time to come on. Really appreciate it. Really diving into Coinberry and explaining it, what's going on in Canada with crypto, how you guys have navigated those waters, and appreciate you taking the time.
Well, thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely. Feel free to come on again in the future. Really curious how you guys pan out going into next year.
Will do.
All right.